All right, here's a video. I've done this 3 times trying to keep this short, and it's not. Doing my best, okay? We have had a conversation as far as what you might be posting on your social media feed politically that could be costing you work. Now, if you're in a space where you're trying to do more direct business-to-business work, B2B work, this is videos for you. If you're not and you don't care, this video is not for you. But I'm going to talk to you about data as far as conversations I've had since 2018 as to what's happening when it comes to businesses doing business with other businesses. Okay? You have a choice to make. You can say, I have the right to feel how I want to feel. I'm going to post what I want to post. And if they don't like it, they can keep scrolling. You're exactly right. They have the right to feel that way. You have the right to feel your way. And guess what? They will keep scrolling and they won't book you. Since 2018, I have had numerous, and I mean numerous, CEOs, vice presidents, marketing directors, HR directors especially, tell me that they are looking at people's personal social media. If you have something on your social media personally that is making them question if they can trust you can be clean in front of their audience, they are not going to book you. This definitely includes political stuff. I just booked a show 2 weeks ago. Well, I performed a show 2 weeks ago at Camp Lejeune for a military base. When I got done with the show, the woman pulled me to the side. She was like, I was really glad. We were looking at a lot of entertainers. She told me directly, I wanted a comedian. She settled on me being a comedian and a magician. She goes, but all the comedians, every time I looked at their stuff, all of their clips on YouTube had something about politics, and we can't have that on the base. Now, I walk in on the base, big picture of the current president. Underneath him is like the generals and the commanders. Underneath that is the base commanders. Okay, and if you're familiar with the military, you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? She told me this has happened 2 weeks ago. I had a conversation yesterday with a gentleman that is actually running a fundraiser for a hospital organization. He told me the same thing. He asked me specifically, this is how he let in. Are you're 100% clean? I said, no doubt about it. He goes, okay. He goes, everything I saw online didn't say that you were not, but I just wanted to make sure I got that confirmation from you. I said, yeah. And because I knew I was going to do this video, I kind of baited him a little bit. I said, you checked me out online? He goes, yeah, I had to. He goes, I had to look at all your stuff. It's to make sure. I said, oh, he goes, we're going to have a lot of people there from all walks of life, and I don't want to offend anybody. I said, huh. So I was curious after having that. I said, so if I would have had a bunch of political stuff, and I'd kind of go to the conversation. I said, so if I would have had a bunch of political, he goes, no, he goes, I couldn't have booked you. He goes, even if I would personally agree with what you feel politically, I couldn't have booked you because I can't have our organization look like we're aligning with how you feel politically one way or the other because I don't know what's going to be in my audience. Now, some of you might not care. You might not say, you know what? And I think it was the one female magician. She said in the comments, well, if they don't agree with me politically, then I'm not a good fit for them. Hey, you know what? You have the right to feel that way. They have the right to feel what they want to feel. But these are the same conversations where people will hit me in the DM wanting to book more corporate work. Same conversations that people put out in these groups. How do I book more corporate work? How do I get more higher paying gigs? And what I'm telling you is that these decision makers in the corporate sector are looking at your social media and they're making a determination if they can trust you on stage. And they can't politically look like they are endorsing your opinion or look like they are politically aligning themselves with how you feel if they have international ties, which nowadays a lot of companies are doing business internationally. You might say, well, Dwayne, you know what? Good for you. I really don't give a shit. Cool. You don't have to. But I'm directly answering. This was a guy named Jeff and this was a guy named Panda Man that were asking me about data. Here's the direct data. Numerous conversations from executives, decision makers, HR managers, marketing directors since 2018, when I really went corporate. I really went corporate hard, and 90% of what I do is now corporate. 90% of what I do is corporate. Okay? They're telling me directly why they either pick an entertainer or why they turn down an entertainer. You may not care. Hey, I post what I post. They don't like it. They don't have to. You know what? You're exactly right. But at the same time, you got to understand, if you're not getting that call back, they're looking at your social media. I did a group 5 days ago in New Orleans, another financial institution. The person, now they actually had a person on their staff that is in charge of social media. We had a conversation I said, did you check out my social media? She goes, I looked at everything. She goes, I looked at all your TikTok, I looked at your YouTube, I looked at your Facebook, I looked at your LinkedIn, I looked at da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she says, everything looked good. I said, okay. And I asked her, baited her too. I said, I'm curious, if I would have had something political, that's as far as I got. She goes, oh, no. She goes, we were ever entertainers, we couldn't, because they had too much political stuff. She goes, and she goes, my executives I couldn't have done that. So multiple people in companies are looking at your social media, particularly if there's like 6 or 7 of them around a boardroom table and they're making a decision. There's a committee. This person might check this out. This person might check that out. Now, if you don't care about that, you might not care about that. Cool. Last thing I'm going to tell you about, I did a financial institution. Their headquarters is in Europe. They have a U.S. operations in Midtown Manhattan. I went and performed the show, got done rocking the house. HR director came up to me after we had a conversation and she saw the show and this and that. She goes, I want to tell you something. She goes, I was glad I was able to book you. Now, this was a black woman. This was a sister, okay? She says, I was glad I was able to book you. I really wanted to book you. And I said, oh, well, I appreciate it. Glad, whatever. She goes, we had to check you out. And I said, well, yeah, I understand. She goes, no. So I had to sign a bunch of vendor forms. And if you are familiar with what I'm talking about, I'm talking about where they will send you a packet of information. I signed a bunch of vendor forms. I didn't know one of those pieces of paper I was signing. She told me, she goes, you indirectly gave it. Well, no, she said, you directly gave us permission to look at your financial records. I said, I did. She goes, yeah, it was one of the forms you signed. She goes, we checked it. We had to check out your financial records. Here's was the key number she told me. She said, we had to look to make sure you had no direct wire transfers coming from Russia or going to Russia since 2016. She goes, if you would have had any wire transfers coming in or going out to certain parts of Eastern Europe or certain parts of Russia, I would not have been able to hire you. Because we can't look like we were endorsing, or that would have looked like an indirect trail of money came from Russia to you, you went to Russia, or it came from us to you. That could have been construed as we were supporting whatever you might have going on over there. Companies have the capability of doing that. If military bases have the capability of doing that, what makes you think they're not looking at your social media? They're looking at it. And they're making decisions and determinations based on what you're posting. This is personal, direct conversations I've had since 2018 repeatedly, and these conversations are coming up more and more and more. So you can take it with a grain of salt. You might at the end of the day say, I don't care, I feel how I feel. And somebody might say, you know what? Somebody booked a show because somebody agreed with their political opinions. Well, you know what? That might be cool and the stars aligned at a certain particular time, but I don't bank my business. I base my business on bankable predictability. And I have more data predicting that I would lose business based on my political views than I would gain business. That's what I base my business on. So take it with a grain of salt. You may not care. This might be Dwayne Hill's just a personal opinion. But if you doubt that, talk to other corporate bookers. If you work for a company, think about what your company might do when they check out people's particular social media. They're making determinations and they're looking at what you're doing on social. And if they don't like it, or it's questionable, or they can't trust you on their stage to rock their stage without going political, they're not going to deal with you. Take it with a grain of salt and have a good day.